Tom, how's your brain?
Oh, so good.
Is it so good?
So good. I was walking down the street the other day and someone was like, whoa, check out that guy's brain. And I was like, I know, right?
It's mine.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's a good brain. You can feel it. Sometimes you can feel it. It's just like exudes a brain magnetism just comes out. But it turns out, Tom, if your brain is not magnetic enough, I have a solution for you today.
Oh, okay. What's that mean? Not magnetic enough, meaning like not charming enough?
Yeah, well, it turns out you can take it any way you want. I have a very specific meaning in mind, and that is, how would you like to inject magnetic pulses into your brain?
I would hate that. Why are you so excited? Is that a good thing for you?
I don't know. But here's the thing. I got a text from a dear friend who listens to the show and says, hey, you know what you should do? You should talk about TMS. Now, that was how he left it. He did not tell me anything more about it, so I had to look it up. And it turns out TMS is kind of awesome and future-y and space-agey.
I thought that's what we call shock therapy. I thought that was the nice... What's that?
Oh, no. Are you telling me that I'm all excited about Cuckoo's Nest?
Maybe I'm thinking of ECT. Okay, go ahead. Forget I said that.
Here's the deal. Transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Oh, this is not one. Okay. I like this. Let's do this.
Transcranial magnetic stimulation. If you are struggling with depression or emotional regulation issues, mood issues that you are unable to treat with medication, this is a strategy to help handle that. They put these little sensors, these little electromagnetic clips right on your noggin, and then they start pulsing the magnetic waves into your brain. Now, I am learning all about this, not at Joe's TMS shop. No, sir. I'm learning about this at the Mayo Clinic.
So it is. My first question was going to be, this sounds fake. This sounds like something you'd get on Goop from Gwyneth Paltrow.
It's a stone, and it fits comfortably in your mouth.
Okay.
No,
so it's
none of
real.
that is true.
Okay.
No, as it turns out, it's a real thing, and the way they back it up is that their statement is that depression is treatable, and that for some people, standard treatments, the commonly accepted treatments, don't work, and so they are trying this more and more, used when these treatments like medications and talk therapy have no impact. And the risks are very low.
Mm-hmm.
It is, again, non-invasive. They don't cut into you. They don't do anything like that. The side effects are headache and, I don't know, depending on how you feel about this. Headache and lightheadedness comes. You might get a little scalp discomfort. Okay, get some lotion. This is one that gives me a little bit of trouble. Tingling, spasms, or twitching of facial muscles.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I don't know. It could be a character thing. You could work with it. Maybe put a little hat on, maybe start wearing a monocle.
Right.
And I think you can hide a lot with the monocle.
Of course.
Uncommon
Because the first
side
thing a
effect.
monocle says is, I'm blending in.
Uncommon side effects, very rare. These serious uncommon side effects, they include things like seizures or mania, particularly in people with bipolar disorder. I've always struggled with mania as a word. It sounds so positive, yet everybody I know who has experience with it, they don't really like it all that much. They also say hearing loss if there is inadequate ear protection during treatment.
Why?
I don't know about that. I don't know about the hearing part. It seems like this didn't seem like it was going to be a loud thing, but maybe it's a loud thing and you need to wear some sort of ear protection. Anyway, it seems like a very easy thing to do. And if you're struggling with all of those challenges I talked about earlier, you should probably check out our TMS, because my buddy who texted me and said you should check out TMS is using it, and that's why he decided to let me know. Seems like an interesting thing.
It does, but you kind of spent most of the time listing all the horrible things it can do. What do you understand about what it can do? How is it able to attack these, what I thought would just be emotional things?
Boy, this is a problem with medical journal articles, isn't it? They really lean in on the dark.
Right.
The way I understand it, it allows you to get back into control of your emotions, of emotional regulation, so that you have more power over your experience with generalized anxiety disorder and depression. It can lift you out of that dark blue phase. And, the way I'm reading it, at least these journal articles from 2015-16 that I'm kind of digging into, particularly related to generalized anxiety disorder, and they actually say over and over, it's GAD. And I don't like that.
Oh, no.
I really don't care for
That's
it.
what we suffer from is GAD?
Yeah.
That gives me anxiety.
I know.
That acronym sucks.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
But yes, so GAD can be impacted. Those symptoms can be alleviated. The symptoms that come with GAD can be alleviated by a little bit of magnet juice.
Wow.
What's even better is there's another one. There's another kind of this magnetic TMS. It's called DTMS, which is deep transcranial magnetic stimulation.
That's
and
the
that
stuff.
starts. Yeah, that's you want to go. You want to go for the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes much deeper. Like, I don't know, you feel it. I don't know where you would feel it in your soul. They touch your soul with magnets. It's amazing. Again, goop.com.
When you're reading these medical journals and it's listing all the bad things that can happen, on the side are there pictures of like old people walking on a beach or like taking a bath near a cliff, like that happens in all the commercials that I see. They're like, you'll have spasms and mania, and someone's just sort of skipping through a cornfield like you do.
No, this has a cross section of a brain, but with what looks like sound waves being pushed through it. But it's a sexy brain, I guess.
Okay, sure. It's a brain that is really doing well.
Welcome to What's That Smell, a sometimes funny podcast about humans and their anxieties. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III.
And every week, we each drag one of our deepest, darkest anxieties into the light to share it, learn about it,
and hopefully laugh about it with all of you. Reach out to us. We want to hear the story of your anxiety so we can share it with everyone behind your back. Just kidding. You'll be involved. You will send your anxiety to something stinky at whatsthatsmell.net. Again, unfortunately, something stinky at whatsthatsmell.net. And with that, Pete, with your permission, I will go first this week.
Don't be a jerk.
Pete, it is late October, and that means two things.
What? Pumpkin helmets.
No, number one, tons of basic girls wearing Uggs and drinking pumpkin spice lattes. So you were close. And number two, my favorite holiday, Halloween, is here or near.
Halloween. Are you in costume right now?
I'm always in costume, Pete.
I imagine that when I think about you starting October 1st. It's time to get out the costumes.
Exactly. And for the rest of the year, my costume is I pretend to be someone who doesn't always want to scream. Now, as such, in honor of Halloween week, I'm going to tell you a harrowing tale. And in this story, I would like to introduce you to a bunch of people with crazy names, because back in ancient times, shame hadn't been invented yet. We start with Gallus Secundus, better known to his friends as Pliny the Younger. You know Pliny.
Oh.
Born in 61 AD, he was a lawyer and author in ancient Rome. And sometime around 100 AD, he wrote a letter to Lucius Licinius Sura, a Roman senator. In the letter, Pliny recounts a story he heard from Curtius Rufus, a Roman historian. We're almost done with names. I'd like to read you a portion of it, translated from Latin. If you don't mind, please cue some spooky atmospheric music. There was in Athens a large and roomy house, which had such a bad reputation that no one lived there. Former inhabitants had said that in the dead of night there was a noise, sounding like the rattling of chains, distant at first, but approaching nearer by degrees. Immediately afterwards, a specter would appear in the form of an old man, of extremely emaciated and squalid appearance, with a long beard and disheveled hair, rattling the chains on his feet and hands. Okay, cut the background music because I'm going to speed through the rest of this because Pliny's version goes on for a while. Yikes. Pliny. People got work in the morning. Here we go. House is uninhabited for a long time. A philosopher, here's the last name, named Athenodorus, shows up. Athy hears the story, but loves the low price, says F it, and moves in. After a while, that aforementioned ghost shows up again, and Athy follows it into the courtyard, where all of a sudden it disappears. Athenodorus marks the spot, has magistrates dig on the site the next morning, and there, buried under the earth, they found an unidentified man, way dead and desiccated, wrapped in chains. They exhumed his body, gave it a proper burial, and guess what? The ghost was never seen again.
Wow.
Pete, I told you that tale because written at 100 AD, that is one of the first traditional ghost stories we have in written history. A lot of times before, ghosts were used in certain kind of stories, but always as a parable or to teach some sort of a lesson. But this was just, a straight up knockdown. How many times have you heard ghost stories about ghosts in chains with unfinished business, right?
Yeah, right. And in 100 AD, they were like wrapping people in chains.
Yeah, apparently they were writing letters. I'm surprised they weren't all just screaming, "What's that ball of light in the sky?" Anyways, that brings us to a listener submission.
About chains?
Not about chains. This listener submission is another harrowing tale in its brevity. Here it is. Hey guys, is anyone scared of plain old ghosts anymore? I'm not, unless it's night and it's dark and I'm alone. Keep it up. Signed, Other Tom. All right. Fair enough. That is it in its entirety. Fair enough.
First, can we wait? Tom?
Oh, I would like to get to that. First and foremost, okay. I wasn't initially sure I cared for someone going around calling himself Other Tom because I assume that has how he introduces himself around town. Once the podcast came up, he said, "Well, it was a good run. Now I'm Other Tom." But now I've embraced it, and we are a team. And this week, both of us Toms present to you and the podcast listeners Phasmophobia, the fear of ghosts.
Oh, I'm very excited about this, Tom. Okay. Tom Prime.
All right. So before we share our personal takes, I wanted to check in and deliver some news on where America currently stands in their belief of ghosts. There's a lot of different studies. The one that I liked the most was in 2017, Chapman University, which is very reputable, released a study called, quote, Survey of American Fears Wave 4. That name alone is weirdly terrifying. Wave 4. I don't like it. Anyway.
No, believe me, that comes with an army of ships.
Yeah, exactly. It's wave 5 where that's where they really get you. Uh-huh. It's about what seemingly rational Americans are afraid of. It is not the number one. I can tell you the number one later if you want, but number 2, right below it, is 52% of Americans currently agree that places can be haunted by spirits. And that is a lot higher than I thought it would be. What do you think?
Oh, I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that with 52% of the vote, that's not number one?
No. Do you want to know what number 1 was really quick?
Yes.
Above that, with 55% agreeing that it's true, is the belief that ancient advanced civilizations, such as Atlantis, once existed here on Earth. And that's where some of our early man got some of the ability to do some of their technology or archaeology ideas revolving around that. So it's Atlantis with number 1, but number 2 with the bullet. Ghosts are a real thing.
This tells me a lot.
About America?
about everything
Yeah.
that I didn't know but feared. Also, I wonder what percentage of America believes the upcoming DC film Aquaman is a documentary. Please go on. Tell me more about the ghosts.
Well, I wanted to ask you, do you believe in ghosts, or would you rather me answer first?
I will tell you. I will tell you. But I always feel like when I answer this, that I am just begging for someone to punk me. So please don't punk me when I tell you I generally don't believe in ghosts. I believe that we use ghosts as a way to somehow explain or rationalize that which we have not solved yet. Whether it's squeaky houses and doors opening and closing on their own. I believe we ascribe to them ghosts just because we haven't found the actual problem.
And you said, don't punk you? Well, Pete, here's my take on it. I 100% agree. I don't personally believe in ghosts, but I would really like to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like a creep, when I was younger, I would walk through graveyards at night just to see if anything would happen. I've been to a seance. I've had my fortune told. The gambit of anything but, anything dark arts related. I'm very much interested and fascinated into any look into the afterlife. As you remember, I discussed I'm still afraid of the possibility of hell on an earlier episode.
Yeah.
That being said, I agree with you. I personally believe, while not looking down on people that believe in ghosts or believe that they've had an experience with the paranormal, I also agree that it's very much a mix of like cognitive bias. Yeah, where we're looking for meaning in things that aren't really there to answer questions, like you said, that we can't answer. Again, ghosts, I would like to be proven wrong. Now, real quick, before we keep going along that line, I wanted to get one thing straight. There is 100% no official scientific evidence that ghosts exist in any matter. I'm not saying that people who believe in ghosts are crazy people, and science is always changing in a self-correcting field. But if anyone out there has read something that makes them believe that ghosts have been proven to exist, is looking at incorrect sources. Or maybe those sources are haunted.
There is a team of 1 billion ghost monkeys with 1 billion ghost typewriters.
Right, exactly.
And they're just churning out fake ghost news.
Yeah, all of the ghost hunters on TV, it's funny because they're looking for the paranormal using physics because they have meters that detect heat or detect electricity to find things that are supposed to not be based in physics at all. I originally wrote a breakdown about the problems with the reality of ghosts. Just like the idea of how there's certain subjects, like I just brought up, to certain rules of physics and not, and why do they sometimes show up dressed in clothes or riding a carriage? Why do ghosts need an outfit or transportations? But then I realized that that's a fool's errand because we can't apply physics to ghosts. That's like applying science to religion.
Right.
That's not a dig on religion necessarily. It's just saying that leaps of faith are inherently involved for both. And human science and logic can't cover all those gaps.
Well, that's it. And because I'm like you, I feel like I while I don't personally believe in that stuff, I have a thing for zombies. So, one would think that I would be all aboard. And as it turns out, I have a thing for the fictional character that is zombies.
Sure. Would you call zombies paranormal? I guess by definition, they life after death.
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends if you go to the lore of the zombie or if you go to the history of the zombie kind of character and you go to Haiti and you go to the... Right. I mean, there is sort of that sort of kind of voodoo history of, and science that once was misunderstood, then was understood, and now we know where they came from, and we can explain it. That doesn't mean that The Walking Dead isn't cool, or at least was cool in early seasons.
And to open this back up, I did a very informal poll of my friends, and a lot of them, not a lot of them, but a good amount of them believe, they're not comfortable calling them ghosts, but believe that they have had some sort of an experience with a paranormal entity of sorts. The majority of them have to do when they're in bed. There is a potential scientific explanation involving that. But then also after someone has lost someone, after they've lost someone. So to get into that, here's the transition. I think the real important topic is not trying to use this as a ghosts aren't real situation, but instead talk briefly about why do you think we believe in ghosts? Why are they so pervasive in our culture? And why do we want to believe in them?
And why are we anxious about it? Why does it become a source of anxiety?
Well, that's the part, and I'm going to need your help on this, because I was able to come up with ideas. And again, whenever I say I came up with ideas, I'm sure that they have been mentioned in a ton of different places. I am not a genius. Well, let's say for this, I'm not a genius. But of course, number one, ghosts can be comforting because it is proof that there is life after death. And if there's life after death, then our loved ones, as I mentioned before, can still be with us in some way. They can help us process grief. And that's why a lot of those stories that I heard do come down for a loved one, like a grandmother, grandfather, uncle passes away. And on the eve of their passing away, or a little bit later, when grief is really the hardest, they're in bed and they sense something and they can see that their loved one is sitting on a chair in sort of a vaguely ghostly, foggy kind of way, and it floods them with a feeling of well-being. I get it. There's a lot of peace to be found there. I get it, because that's the opposite of dead is gone, and there's no way that I can ever have contact with this person again. Number two, because I wanted to bring it back to Athy and the clanky old guy in my story in the beginning, the idea of ghosts having unfinished business on Earth, communicating with the living in order to get that business solved, because that's justice after death, along the lines of heaven and hell. That based on what we do on Earth and how we can affect Earth makes us go to a good or bad place as a result. So I get all of that. And that makes sense. I can't personally believe in it. Again, I would like to. I would have loved to have felt like I heard from all of my grandparents are past, dead. Who am I, a fourth grader? All of my grandparents live in jars now because most of them were cremated. And let's be honest. And as a result, I've never felt, again, personally, that they were ever watching me or were there. That hasn't stopped me.
Because that's the fear, right? Because that's the fear that if you carry around a belief that they have passed into another sort of energetic state, grandma's there and she's watching you pick your nose and masturbating. And that's the last thing that you want to imagine.
Well, A, that would never happen to me because I use the same hand for both. Number two, that's just a logical fallacy, Pete. And number two, my body's a temple. I guess, no one really goes as far as that. A lot of the ghost stories that I've heard really seem to end with a check-in. A lot of the ones that I read, and I read a ton of ghost stories because this subject is right up my alley. A lot of them don't seem to feel like they're always there and always watching, very conveniently in that way, that they're just there to sort of give a tip of the hat when you need it. And then when when your shower goes on too long, they're like, oh, well, time to go back up and play my harp or something. But you got to get into the anxiety about it. I mean, there's enough anxiety in general. The opposite of everything I said is the chance of that there is no peace. If you have unfinished business and the business can't be finished, then you're just wandering around. The fact that there is a chance that you can be unhappy after death and still be suffering and there's no peace, that is the definition of horror. What other kind of thoughts do you have about why we're anxious about it?
I think it's because we have unsettled relationship with our own feelings of the future, that which we don't know, right? I don't know if my contributions are going to matter. I don't know if I'm going to have a settled relationship with my kids when they're adults. I don't know any of that.
Oh, so not just mortality. You're saying just what happens starting tomorrow.
Yeah, what happens starting tomorrow. If tomorrow is the
Interesting.
end, I can absolutely imagine a sense of, I want to believe in ghosts because I want to believe that there is opportunity for me as an energetic being beyond this, flesh prison. You know what I mean? That I can
Right.
somehow at least witness something, that I don't have to fear nothingness. And I don't personally carry that. I mean, I believe that dead is dead, and when I am gone, I'll be food for worms. And I hope I go back into the environment and become, food for the universe again. And I think that is a noble endeavor in and of itself. Yet, back to your listener submission here, Other Tom, I understand the feeling of fear related to the unknown.
Yes.
For me, it's not about it's not about ghosts. It's about, and this is the same feeling I used to get as a kid sneaking through, graveyards. It wasn't about the dead coming up. It was about like the Vikings and brigands that I'm sure are hiding behind the trees and are just waiting to rob me of my gold doubloons. You know what I mean? Like,
or that weird seaside clown that you talked about. It was like, get on my clown ship. Right. I can't remember exactly what he said.
Right. We get out and suddenly you're in Clown Alley again, and that's those are real kind of tangible things that you would fear. But I can absolutely see how when it's dark and you're alone and you don't know what's upstairs, that belief in the paranormal becomes much more steady.
That is a great way of the lack of steadiness is another way of saying the lack of foundation.
Yeah.
The lack of foundations that we have built our understanding on, even if you're religious, that the basis that there is a hierarchy, that there is a plan, that there is we're at the top of the food chain, and this is how it goes, can really be rocked very easily by something involving with the paranormal. And I think people sometimes there's a real push-pull for that. They really want that. And then sometimes I think when you get it, there's an immediate chance for madness, which is interesting. I think that's why a lot of times we enjoy horror movies. We've gone into some of this before. But no, letting your mind play tricks on you because, again, as we both started with, at the basis of it is something that we do not understand. And so it takes whatever you need to take to try to fill in those gaps, whether it be ghosts, whether it be religion, whether it be you're having sleep paralysis and a sleep hallucination or anything else, that we will do whatever it takes to make our own narrative. And a lot of that can still be very, very scary.
Right.
Along this line of trying to find any kind of narrative, trying to make sense of the unknown, I did find a TED Talk. Fancy, right?
All ghost stories are answered in TED Talks. I forgot.
They all are. Exactly.
That's amazing.
Did I tell you I'm getting married to a TED Talk? Oh my gosh! Congratulations, me! I found a TED Talk, and it was given by Carrie Poppy. She is co-host of a popular podcast called Oh No, Ross and Carrie. Basically, it explores and demystifies spiritual, religious, and paranormal topics. But interestingly, she, on this TED Talk, talked about her own paranormal experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, she was alone in her house, and suddenly she felt a presence. The feeling grew and grew, and as it did, a pressure began to build inside of her chest. And she really started to feel like she was being watched. And the pressure got worse, and as it got worse over the course of a week, she started to hear whispering sounds from different places in her house. And she would walk around, and when she went to this, it came from the other room. And she became convinced, and this is someone who writes a Ghosts Aren't Real podcast, that her house was haunted. She didn't know what to do. She did a cleansing by burning a sage stick, probably because she saw that in some weird movie. No matter what she tried, the pressure on her chest and the auditory sounds, nice. They just kept getting worse and worse, and it was starting to get painful. Finally, she took to the internet and arrived on a ghost forum for skeptics. And one of them said she had the symptoms for carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yay!
Or should I say carboon monoxide poisoning? These include A, pressure on the chest, and B, no kidding, auditory hallucinations. Wow. She called a utility worker to come out. He rectified the problem and told her, quote, if she had not gotten it fixed when she did, she wouldn't have been alive the next morning. So the reason I bring that up is because there were two ways to look at that. A, it's haunted. B, there's something physical going on. Both were weirdly kind of right because she was about to start haunting herself. Because she doesn't have one of those little beepers that say, hey, jerk, you've got carbon monoxide in your house.
It's like $20, Carrie. $20 saves a life.
Yeah, $20. Yeah,
Come on.
You can't afford the AA, Carrie? Let's do this. And so the only reason I bring that up is I think ghosts and the idea of ghosts and the feeling that we are being watched by our loved ones or even by evil forces can tell you a lot about what's going on in your head and also sometimes physically. I get that there is a lot of comfort to be had by that. And if that is your bag, I absolutely 100% go for it. But also every once in a while, when you're also getting the sage stick, bring in a handyman, have him take a look around and make sure that you're not poisoning yourself, not on ghosts, but on poison.
Yeah, it's ghosts or asbestos, maybe. Whatever.
Exactly. It's one of the two. In my research, I also found another ghost that is actually science. It's ghost-inducing science. It's a phenomenon called infrasound.
What?
Have you ever heard of infrasound?
What?
Ooh,
no.
Right?
This sounds like RTMS.
This is everything goes back to RTMS. Infrasound is a vibration that occurs below our normal range of hearing. That's below 20 hertz. Certain machinery like engines, whales, and extreme weather. This is interesting. How many ghost stories have you heard that take place on a dark and stormy night?
Oh, no.
Extreme weather can all cause infrasound. Now, many studies suggest that it can result in symptoms including feelings of depression, the chills, and the sneaking suspicion that someone is watching you. Did I get this from a crackpot website? No, because the beloved astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says that infrasound at 18 hertz vibrates at such a rate that the eye can pick it up, which might cause visual hallucinations.
Wow. That's like that Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton movie, Twister. I bet all those tornadoes were ghosts.
Exactly. They didn't need to hide under that bridge. The cow was just flying around for fun, and otherwise it was just infrasound. The original Jan de Bont movie was called Infrasound, and Hollywood said, no, thank
They
you.
won't get it. Let's call it Twister.
Exactly.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Hollywood.
And this has been great. I would love to talk more on this, but my car is in the shop, and I have to go call a boober. I love that. Don't use it. I wrote that just while we were talking. Don't use that. I just wanted to say.
I can't take anymore all these games you play. One day you good, next day your mood is so bad.
Do you feel your age, Tom?
Ugh. Does that tell you? That noise didn't actually come out of my mouth. That was just my bones made that noise. I turned my head and it went.
That was my neck.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Why do you
Well,
ask?
sometimes I do. I do, obviously, at the doctor. That's kind of well-trod territory around here. But I also feel it in the classroom, right? I've spent the last, 15 years or so, something like that, teaching graduate students how to be better marketers and PR professionals
Yep.
At a university. And they look at me as their teacher, and I do my best to, do what you do, to equip them with skills to make their contributions more robust in their work and the wah-da-doo-dah. And so I over the last few years, I've had this uncomfortable experience of seeing my peers, these other instructors, leave higher education and go back into the workforce for some reason or another. Only to be met by challenges that I personally didn't see coming, that I didn't expect. They're interviewing now for jobs with, and I say this sometimes literally, their own prior students.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah, of course that makes sense. And that sounds like a very rough situation to be in.
Yeah. And because they're not getting hired. Right?
Of course.
You talk about like, or you remember that great movie Up in the Air. You love that movie.
I love that movie.
Handsome George Clooney.
And Anna Kendrick, who is my girlfriend. Call me, Anna.
This Clooney movie, right? I mean, the whole sort of gestalt of this movie was that, oh my gosh, we're hiring younger, cheaper staff. And I actually find that disrespectful to young people. I think younger, more agile, and in some cases more experienced staff, right? And when I say experience, I mean maybe more immediately relevant experience absolutely is a real thing. And you could be replaced by technology, right? You could be technology managed by younger, cheaper, more experienced staff, right? Or you could be just outsourced altogether, entire companies being split apart thanks to outsourcing. You know, and so all of these things become terrifying when you hit a certain place in your life. So I offer to you, Tom, this little puzzle here. 49 years ago this year, a term was coined that not only defines a form of discrimination, but is ironically of an age to be discriminated against by its own definition. What is that term?
Ageism.
It is.
I did it!
Yeah, you did it in one.
Woo! That's great. Or should I say, boo? Right,
no, you should not.
I'm done. I swear, I'll stop.
The term ageism was coined in 1969 by Robert Neil Bootler. No, sorry.
That long ago. That's surprising.
Yeah, I know. That was a surprise to me, too. He was the first director of the National Institute on Aging and a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and he defined ageism as having three connected elements. Okay. Prejudicial attitudes toward older people.
I thought that would be it.
Yeah. And the aging process, discrimination against older people, and practices and policies that perpetuate stereotypes of older people.
Okay, all those sound like the same thing. But
yeah, right.
He really could have shortened that by 2, but okay.
He would have been fine. Well, and so I think it's important to look at what those stereotypes are, right? And because that's what we're scared of. I'm trying to get back around to the anxiety here, right? The thing that we're scared of is that we are perceived as something like really useless, right? That we're unable to contribute to society, that we have a poor memory. Yeah, right. Yes, that we're slow and inactive and out of date. Yeah, analog. Oh, yeah. I bet you programmed your computer with punch cards, old man. That we don't
tell us more stories about the soda shop, you old jerk.
Right? Yeah. And, but it does go the other way too. And I think this is another important part, that young people are too young to contribute wisdom or knowledge. They haven't experienced enough.
Oh, naive.
These young people, they can't think for themselves. Oh, these young people are out of control. They'll misbehave.
Yeah. Tell us more stories about your Razor scooter, you young jerks. That's already such an outdated reference.
I know, right? Man, I want to be ageist at you right now.
I know. Hey, why don't you go yeet somewhere?
Tell me more about your gluten sensitivity. So, it's gotten even more complex, as with all terms right now in the hashtag era. Look, I'm ageisming myself.
Right. Well, can I say really quick? When I think of ageism, I always forget that ageism also is attributed to the young.
Yes.
The younger, I should say.
Yeah.
I always forget that. I only think right now about people being aged out of jobs because they don't understand beeps and boops.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. So that's
because they call
that's
them
a good thing to remember.
Boops. Yeah.
That's the real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are three forms of ageism. There are, several forms of ageism. There are three that are predominantly kind of recognized, and I want to see if you can figure out what they are. Number one is adultism. And that sounds like something you might find in a specialty shop.
That sounds like a rash that I've had before. I got a case of the adultism. It'll go away.
What is adultism?
Okay, my guess would be that you are not cool enough to understand something that is current or trending because you've been aged out of it.
Okay, see, now this was a trick question. It's actually almost exactly the opposite of that. Adultism is a general favoring of adults over children and teenagers, right? Over the young.
By other adults, one would assume.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Adultism.
But that's okay. We have 2 more chances for you to redeem yourself.
Ooh, this is exciting.
The next one is gerontocracy. What is a gerontocracy?
A gerontocracy, if comes from geriatrics, means that there's no way to get ahead because all of the people leading the group are all old fogies that are set in their ways.
Tom, this was your big shot, and you hit it out of the park. It is in this case, we're talking specifically about a form of leadership or government in which all leaders of the group are all significantly older than the average adult population.
Well, America doesn't know anything about that.
No, we've never heard anything about that. And the third is jeunism.
Jeune.
Jeunism. You have to say it kind of French. Jeunism.
Well, jeune in French is young or child.
Mystery coming into focus.
So I would say the jeunism is jeunism. Oh, so if adultism was... Okay, so jeunism is that it's almost like trying to learn a new language. These young kids have their own way of doing everything, and it's impenetrable to someone over a certain age.
Well, if adultism was a general favoring of adults, jeunism is a general favoring of younger people, and specifically of youthful energy or beauty over older people. This is modern marketing and advertising, right? I mean, that's what this is. That's what we're fighting here is everybody has a certain look and they're all young and we all regret that we're aging and we're going to capitalize that and make you spend money on jeans that are too tight, right?
Right.
There is a new updated definition from the good trio of Iverson, Larson, and Solomon, and they say ageism is defined as negative or positive stereotypes, prejudice, and or discrimination against or to the advantage of elderly people or the basis of their chronological age or on the basis of a perception of them being old or elderly. Ageism can be implicit or explicit and can be expressed on a micro, meso, or macro level, whatever. It means we're discriminating against the old or the young, and it goes both ways. It goes all directions. Oh my gosh, she was better when she was better younger. You know, she just can't get the same parts that she used to, right? That sort of implicit, ageism. It's rampant everywhere. And so I start thinking about where does ageism come from? And I should say now, as an anxiety, because this is an anxiety show, I'm at a really weird place with this anxiety. I'm seeing it with others, right? I'm seeing it in others that are around me who are roughly my age or a little bit older than me, and they're starting to experience what I would catalog as an external observer as ageism, but it's never happened to me. It hasn't happened to me yet, and I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm a little bit anxious about not yet being anxious about it, but seeing it around the corner. Does that make any sense? Like it's a meta anxiety and I'm a little bit awash.
Oh, I truck in being anxious about being anxious. Oh, dude. Anticipation about an anticipatory situation. That's me with 100%. Yeah. I'm a mess. So yes, I can definitely agree with that.
So there's an interesting, I started looking at where does this come from, right? Where does ageism come from in us? Because it seems to me that if in fact ageism is both a discrimination against the elderly by the young and a discrimination by the young against the elderly,
right?
That maybe we should find a way to come to center on this because really we're just making it worse for each other.
Right.
And, why can't we all just get along?
Is the answer teenagers? We should just do whatever teenagers say to do? Is that? Oh, I guess that's a little too young. Never mind.
That's jeunism. You're ageist, and you just got pwned.
Yes, queen.
So I'm starting to think, where did this come from? And it turns out here's a really interesting thing. There is a relationship between anxiety and beliefs towards aging and ageism. The Journal of Scientific Psychology. Mm-hmm. Hallelujah to the Sixum. Who wrote the paper of Wisdom, Connor, Dana, Hogan, Lindsay, and Callahan.
Oh, I know Callahan.
They are delightful contributors to this body of knowledge. And here's what they found out. They focused on college students' belief toward ageism and discovered that using the social development theory of ageism, there is a significant relationship between subjective history of exposure to older adults and ageist belief. But subjects' current exposure to older adults is not correlated with levels of ageism. Huh? So college students, imagine this body of college students that were studied, they either were ageist or not. but their beliefs were not, they did not have anything to do with their relationship with older people contemporaneous to the study. So let's say your average college student hangs out with a bunch of old people, and that's not where their ageist beliefs came from. What the study uncovered is that ageism comes, and these ageist behaviors are cemented as we are very young children.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so the lesson here is that we are screwed.
Yeah, because what can you... Wait a minute. How can that be?
What do you do with that? What do you learn? You learn that, you are witnessing how your parents are behaving against older populations. You're witnessing how your community behaves against older populations, and that cements your behavior toward older populations when you are a child. And as a result, you end up having these behaviors that have kind of emergent behaviors around ageism as you age yourself. And I think that's really scary.
Wow. And vice versa. Are you, as a child, seeing how older people treat younger people?
Well,
that
the study,
that would make sense. Sure.
That would make sense, but the study didn't specifically answer that. So I don't know what to do about that. I don't know what to do.
Wow.
I don't know what to do.
I would not have thought that it would start when you were young. I thought that everything, because I'm still, even as an old person, I'm still very young at times. I would think that everything is just like made of rainbows. And just that, like, I always forget that everything is so formative when you're young like that. But that's actually really distressing. That you build up your foundation that young about, you know what, though? As I'm saying it out loud, that makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
And again, to my earlier hypothesis, we are so screwed.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
This other title for this podcast.
Yeah, right. We're so screwed. So this is why I want to, this is how I want to wrap it up. And I want to ask you the question. What do we do as this thing, as we age into a group where ageism is a reality? What do you and I do, Tommy, to help stave off the cold sickle of ageism? How do you do that? What are you doing to continue to fight off this anxiety?
Well, I can say for me, as has been talked about a little bit on the podcast before, I do work with many ages of people. Mm-hmm. I work with people that are much older than me in corporate training. I work with people with fifth graders much younger than me. And as I've talked about, would like to think that I'm of a favored uncle status with a lot of my friends' kids. And I find each of their viewpoints equally interesting. I don't go to kids and talk down to them, and I don't look up at older people and assume that they are wiser, but I do assume that I can learn from both at the same time. I guess my dumb answer, which is so antiquated in itself, would be some sort of a social roundtable, making yourself available to those people and trying to meet them at their level and see what their framework is like. Because right now it is so popular to blame everything on millennials. And that's so dumb, because
so cheap.
Businesses should be learning, as frustrating as dealing with the stereotypical millennial can be for certain business leaders. You should learn so much from them. Because, for instance, just to go on millennials, they're telling you what works and what doesn't. Get off your idea about participation trophies. Go on to the fact of that there's different ways to motivate employees. And there's different ways to get the best out of your employees. Stop trying to make your sort of rank and file, make a normal employee into a assembly line situation, just sort of churning out work. There should always be active communication between them. Maybe that's very idealistic, and maybe that's the most cliched answer ever. I'm not sure. But I would think it's just dialogue, but honest dialogue, not going in with a preset of ideas that you already have.
That's right, because your ideas are terrible. Let's start with that.
You mean mine personally?
No, yours are great. I mean,
Oh,
the
okay.
general population start out with the assumption that your own ideas are terrible. And I think that goes
because
with...
you're one person.
Yes, exactly. So
And you're
that's
a victim to everyone. Apparently, you're a victim to what you learned as a child. So now's the time
That's
to
right.
learn for other things. Yeah.
Well, and I think the same advice goes to kind of ingratiating yourself for any marginalized population too, is just continue to ask questions. For me, around specifically this concept of ageism, it's all about kind of continuing to contribute for myself, right? Podcasting and writing to decrease dependence on antique human resources models of contribution, and that's something for me that is very present in my mind, and really increase exposure to people younger than myself and older than myself with the primary objective to continue to develop my skills and abilities and to give back in kind. But most important, Tom, and this is, I think, something you and I could both follow, is maybe we should start dressing like Angus Young in AC/DC and go for the full schoolboy uniform even now as middle-aged corporate workers. I would really like to see us adopt something akin to that, something that really demonstrates to the world that we think as young as we act.
Interesting. So you think that cosplay is part of the thing? The thing that's going to bridge two generations together is for one to awkwardly try to dress like the other.
Yeah.
That should work great, because I know whenever my dad and I have had an argument when I was growing up, and he'd say, "Tom, I'm not trying to diss you." I immediately thought, wow, he's really talking to me on my level, and we are totally connecting.
You got it. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say, along with that idea, older people don't try to use younger, as we've done, ironically in this podcast, don't try to adopt younger speech in your effort to talk to people. Talk to them like an adult.
Yes, because every time we've used language incorrectly, it's been ironic.
That's phew. Hey, Pete, do you think they'll buy it? Because so far this podcast is boss. Today's podcast, again, is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audio book download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/scent of a podcast. I just checked with Steve Audible, and they are up to over 194,000 titles to choose from for your phone, iDroid, Koondle, other words. It doesn't matter. You guys understand what technology is, Pete?
I just want you all to know how close this sponsorship is to us, that we have a direct line to founder Steve Audible.
Yeah, he's great.
That's remarkable. And speaking of remarkable things, I have the book picked today, and I'm picking another book that I haven't read. But the reason I haven't read it is because as of the day that we're recording this, the book was only released hours ago. It came in my handsomely appointed Jack Ryan Amazon box. Yes, they have now completely, I'm going to take a picture of it because it's the most ridiculous thing to see, this box that has Jack Ryan, Amazon's Jack. It's overkill, Amazon. Give it up. It has books in it. That's what I want. Can you guess what book came in my stupid Amazon Jack Ryan box?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the novelization of the film The Predator.
Oh, God, no. No, it's not. It is. It is a book by a guy that I have been following for a lot of years. His name is Hank Green, and this is his debut novel, and it's called An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. And it came out just today, and he's
the brother of what's his name?
Of John Green,
who I love.
He has been a pick for a number of before we picked Paper Towns. He's done. I'm just a big fan of both of these guys. They are the Vlog Brothers. They do Crash Course. We've talked about him before. I feel like I've been watching Hank write this book. He was writing the book on their bus tour across America. The brothers in their RV as they were doing the book tour for John John's latest book, Turtles All the Way Down, which is also a fantastic book and a terrific look at OCD. This book I started reading. I'm through the first 2 chapters just as I was eating lunch, and it is ironically an absolutely remarkable thing. It tells a wonderful story with a wonderful voice. I can't wait to just have some time to sit down and to continue to read it. So it is available on Audible. You should check it out. An absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green. He is an example for me as a middle-aged guy. He's an example of a guy who's doing exactly the kind of stuff that I want to be doing with my career, to continue to be relevant and creative and contributory. And it's one of those things where we don't know each other. We've passed in the halls at conferences, but I am weirdly honored to have this book in my house. Like it feels like I was part of the journey, and I think it's going to be worth reading if you're into these kinds of adventures. I should tell you about the book, though. It starts with a young woman who is walking through New York City in the middle of the night, and a statue of a Transformer appears. And if that's not enough to get you into it, the Transformer she names Carl, and then she becomes a crazy internet sensation. And that's all I know so far. You should check out this book, an absolutely remarkable thing.
Oh,
yeah.
That sounds like a fever dream. Okay,
it does. It sounds exactly like that. So there you go. Check out this book.
I will definitely check that out, and you guys should too. Again, What's That Smell, listeners? You can get a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial. Go to audibletrial.com/scent of a podcast.
We don't pay to advertise this show, so we appreciate you sharing it with others you think might be interested. On the Facebook or the Twitter or a machine or the Instagram machine, whatever you want. We don't discriminate around here. I think this show is evidence that we don't discriminate about, unless you're really old.
Or really young. There's a real sweet spot for this podcast.
Anyhow, we sure appreciate you spreading the word and spreading those kind reviews. You're good people, and you're good looking, and you contribute, and we want you to keep contributing.
Yes, what he said. Coming up next week. And it sounded magical. And of course, back on Earth, all the men are like, "Grr!" like knocking things over with their penises. And it's like the worst.
The laughing that I do is really the laughing that's all around, like not crying.
So we're back to clowns.
Yeah.
Again, we've got our painted on smiles, and inside we're all burning alive. Oh, I would give anything for just you to play the ending song. And like, that's it. You play the ending song. We never do another episode. It's just take off your pants. And then that's
Show's over. Okay,
yeah.
Good. This week's tune is Love is Love by Love Chronicles. Thank you all for listening. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Mess III. We'll be back next week. Or will we? On What's That Smell?